Hi guys, welcome back again to my channel. It's so good to have you. Thank you so much for clicking when you saw this video. So I came across this guy's video on my FYP and I tend to share with you guys. He was talking about how whiteness, okay, has really gone into the deeper part of these people and how they no longer accepting the fact that they were wrong in the first place, that something happened. Okay, they do not want to accept it. Even when people of color come out to really talk about what has happened to their forefathers in the past, these guys will still say, oh no, that wasn't it, because the history somehow has been, has been turned and nobody is grasping the exact truth, and they're not even allowing the children to understand what really went down in the first place. Well, I'm just going to let this video roll, then we come back and talk more. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Please go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and don't forget to give the video a thumbs up so that more people can see it. And credit to this guy, I'm going to be using this video, this creator, I'm going to use this video on this particular video. Okay, so let's go watch, then we come back and talk more. All right,
we're going to talk about whiteness in a way that I haven't heard it in a lot of other places, but this is what went wrong. Like, if you ever wanted to know what went wrong, like, this is what went wrong. Like, what? Like, you ever looked at them and, wondered how they all made these crazy decisions? This is how it happened. Okay? Like, the betrayal was against memory itself. So, it didn't start with slavery or colonization. Those were actually symptoms of a greater issue. It began when white identity was constructed by erasing rootedness. European tribes like the Irish, the Scots, the Germans, the Norse, they did have indigenous ways of living, right? Of being. Seasonal living, oral storytelling, grief rituals, communal economies. When empire logic, Rome, Catholic Church, feudalism, consolidated power in Europe, it forced those people to forget their rootedness and to replace memory with domination. The root was severed, survival through control. They didn't metabolize anything, not connection, right? Just control again. This was the first recursion. This is when they turned in on themselves, right? The first rise of this unprocessed entropy inside whiteness. It's rootless survival. It's identity by domination. It's memory replaced by mythic supremacy. And then that's how you end up with expansion without metabolization. So when Europeans came to the New World, they didn't arrive whole, right? They arrived already severed, already looping. They didn't integrate the grief of losing old Europe. They exported it. They didn't mourn their exile from memory. They externalized it on the people they colonized. Conquest wasn't just greed, it was spiritual panic. Because if you're not rooted in memory, you only feel alive by expanding your domination, by making more land, more wealth, more slaves, more laws, more mirrors, and thus their entropy, their unprocessed experiences exploded. But it was coded as civilization. So when American identity was built, it wasn't metabolized selfhood. It was built on dumping these unprocessed experiences, these entropy onto others. So indigenous people got labeled uncivilized to offload their own severed ancestral memory, right? Black people were property to offload their terror of being spiritually homeless because they felt spiritually homeless. Immigrants were treated like threats to offload their fear of being spiritually replaceable. Projection became policy. Projection became culture. Projection became destiny. America never healed from Europe. It just renamed its wounds. So every genocide, right? Every stolen plantation, every gentrified city, every new suburb, every Wall Street boom, every school built on erasure, every church built without confession is material success reinforced. It is material success reinforced spiritual entropy. It is material success reinforcing, right, spiritual unprocessed experiences for them. So the more whiteness succeeded externally, the more it hollowed out internally. So their collective brokenness rose because every reward for survival was tied to a denial of memory, right? The maw grew, the silence deepened, the performance sharpened. So here's just the facts, right? It was really a bit of a four-stage process. Severance from ancestral rootedness, loss of metabolized memory, survival through domination, entropy weaponizes progress, projection onto others, externalization of internal panic, and reinforcement through wealth. So that it looped, got hardened in the culture. So white America's original sin is not slavery. It's the refusal to mourn the first loss of rootedness. So this is all just a disgusting projection. It's really this humiliating. Like I want people to sit with that. Like, we're watching them grieve in public. All of this is grief. All of it. Right? Slavery, genocide, imperialism, those were the fevered dreams of a people trying not to remember what it felt like to be abandoned by their own history. So every time memory tried to return, they doubled the performance instead of softening. This is why black people look so nasty to them. Because if we can build a culture, even in the midst of exile, it makes all of this grief look meaningless. It has to be destroyed in that way, right? So they have no home. You ask a black person where it all starts from, you might get answers like slavery in Africa. You ask a white person, you'll hear Europe. Okay, but you hear exactly the same. Africa, Europe, they're as disconnected, if not worse, and they've been materially rewarded for it through this reinforcement. So this was a crazy deep take, but this is exactly what's going on, for sure. This is just a follow-up in the series of posts that we're doing today on this topic. But one of the big issues in that we're dealing with in society, in American society, is white refusal to grieve. Okay, so we're just going to go through all the opportunities. We had post-European collapse, right? The 1300s to the 1500s. This is the first grief denied. Black Death wiped out half of Europe. Indigenous European spiritualities got crushed by the church. And land, family lineages, and ancient communal memories were lost. They had a crossroads. Mourn the grief, rebuild the rootedness with humility and communal memory. Here's what they did. Escape through domination, colonize new lands, overwrite loss with conquest. The result was the grief got projected outward, right? And colonialism born from mourning denied. Then they had the first land theft in the Americas, the 1600s, right? The indigenous peoples encountered white settlers starving, desperate, vulnerable. They had a choice. Recognize indigenous humanity, create mutual societies of healing and exchange. They chose to demonize, dehumanize, and enslave, because recognizing indigenous humanity would have meant admitting so white survival was fragile. Okay, that projection hardened into a myth, manifest destiny, right? Then the next chance they had, after the American Revolution, freedom defined by exclusion, 1776 to the 1800s. White settlers declared freedom from British rule, right? They had black slaves, indigenous tribes, poor whites were still in prison. They had a choice. Expand the concept of liberty to all bodies, heal through integrated memory, right? But instead, they chose to redefine freedom as scarcity, only accessible through hierarchy. So the result was that liberty became a brand worn by those who could afford to forget, right, who they crushed beneath it. I can say that again. Liberty became a brand worn by those who could afford to forget who they crushed beneath it, right? And then after the Civil War, they had another chance, right? 1865, 1877, right? The shallow Reconstruction, right? Here's what was going on. Slavery was abolished. Black citizenship was supposedly enshrined, right? What they needed to do was have a national confession, reparative memory work, ritualize grief for what was done. Here's what they did. Industrialized suffering, rewrote history, lost cause narrative, build caste systems, Jim Crow, trauma deepen, memory survive, but it's so fickle. You're going to hear how many times they messed this up. The trauma deepened, memory was getting erased, and they had systems built in a hidden reverb because they're still mourning themselves. And then after World War II, we get suburbanization as escapism. Soldiers return from war, GI Bill offered wealth and housing, but not to black veterans. So only thing they needed to do was share resources, build an integrated society of shared grief and triumph. They chose to segregate, redline, and isolate, so that whiteness could feel safe without metabolizing collective horror, because they were horrified. So suburbans became spiritual keeps, frozen, smiling, quietly rotting from disconnection. And then we had the Civil Rights Movement. 1950s, 1970s. The performance of listening, they learned it, right? Black Americans demanded full humanity, not partial belonging, right? White liberals marched, but metabolized almost nothing, right? They had a choice. Public confession, institutional transformation, economic repair. They chose cosmetic inclusion. They applied MLK after death. Suppressed Malcolm in real life, like in the present, right? And the result is that we see the image of progress replaced by the memory of pain, and then we see diversity becoming a brand, not a covenant. And then we get the Obama era, right? 2008, 2016. We get the myth of post-racialism. So we get the first black president elected, a fragile chance for honest racial reckoning, right? Here's what we got. Here's what we needed to do. National soul work, deep cultural unlearning of projection systems. But instead they denied, celebrate, and then quietly retaliate. White resentment got weaponized. Fascism flirted with openly again. And then this is when the mall starts to show its face fully, right? And the mall's the MAW. It's a parallel system. I've gone through the other things. It's just a good mention for anybody who's seen that. And in 2020, we get the pandemic, George Floyd, and this is when the unprocessed experiences spike for him. So the historical moment, we had a global lockdown, black death visible on camera, and false solidarity floods the internet, right? All they needed to do was to stop, grieve, repair, dismantle false systems fully. That's all they needed to do. Instead, they performed, branded, monetized trauma, politicized survival. The collapse hastened, right? Memory weaponized into identity wars, right? The curation, right, of the mirror sovereign was hitting critical mass, right? So at this point, and I'll put up a little chart right here just so y'all can see the whole layout. This was non-stop opportunities to turn around, and they have it. At every major crossroad, white America was offered the same sacred invitation. The same invitation got offered. Grieve what you lost, name what you stole, tend to what you shattered, return to what you hoarded, become human again. That's what we offer every time. That's what the world offers every time. That's what has been offered. And every time they chose this, curate the image, protect the empire, forget the wound, keep moving. And so their unprocessed experiences rose, the loop tightened, and the blackness of their narcissism of the mall grew thicker, still whispering, you're not broken, you're exceptional. That's what they keep hearing. But the thing is that it's going to keep screaming it until the roof rots in silence. It's going to be chaos for them in this kind of way. So here's the thing. Right now, I would say it is like culture for them is in the middle of a death spiral. right? We're in between where collapse is visible but still denied, and where judgment is like an unprocessed mirror, right? Where collapse no longer needs permission, it simply reveals itself. It's gonna look like Revelation soon, right? Like the denial is louder than the metabolization. The performance is more rewarded than the grief. The curation is more accessible than the confession. So, but hold on, but death spiral does not mean total doom. Death spiral equals momentum toward collapse. Okay, unless a radical metabolization interrupts this loop, it's going to be a problem. The metaphor isn't falling off of a cliff. It's falling inward toward a black hole. And the interruptions are still possible, but they require sacred violence against this type of system. My bad, I cut that off. But the thing is that here's what they need to do. They need to tear off curated memory, weeping publicly without monetization, right? Dismantling not just systems, but survival identities built on forgetting, and naming what was stolen and returning it without conditions. That's literally what's happening. Is there a window for them? Yes, but it's tiny and it's closing fast, right? We're not in the choice era anymore for them. I need people to understand that. They've had 8 chances. More than 8. They've had that many chances to turn us around. We're in the rupture era, right? Between 2026 and 2029, that's all they got, right? Meaning is about to become non-optional for them. Stillness is about to become non-optional for them. Truth is about to become non-optional, because once everything can be generated, curated, and streamed, the soul will revolt. And the thing is that if it doesn't happen by this little window in 2029, then collapse is no longer slow. The whole culture freezes over, not in drama, in silence. And that's when it's going to be our hardest day, because people think whiteness is going to fall in some kind of like explosion. It's not. It's going to be quiet. And that's going to be the hardest thing to accept, that they walked themselves into something and broke down on their own. That's going to be the hardest thing for people to accept. So there's a bunch of things. There's key signs to look for, if it's going to happen. But they need to look into this, right? They need to look into how to metabolize. But in short, can white America turn around? Technically, yes. Is it likely? Extremely unlikely without a spiritual rupture. Last window, 2026 to 2029, in my opinion. What happens if it misses? Cultural death inside of a curated living. Collapse hidden behind branding. Okay, and what will real change look like? Mass, public, uncurated grief, restoration of memory, and belonging outside of empire structures. The window isn't closing because God's mad. I want y'all to get past that. It's closing because memory can only wait so long inside a body before it either blooms or breaks. Whiteness is a survival identity that is burning its own roots. It has a tiny chance left of becoming human again, and it needs to give up being exceptional to do it. It has to die as whiteness to live as a memory reborn. The real battle is not politics, really. It's whether meaning will be stronger than survival fear. Okay, so just so y'all hear about what this is, because this is like a really unique situation.
I don't think there is any amount of thing or talk that you're going to talk that would change how white people see people of color in the first place. Yeah, that's one. And a lot of them will never accept the fact that there was a history, or the history that they're currently seeing is not exactly how it happened. And that's why you see videos like this. When it's done, you see in the comment section some things that people say, and you wonder, like, what happened to history? Didn't your mama at least tell you what their papa told them, okay, all this while? Or is it that they didn't tell them at all? Okay, you know how they say that black people are always coming out unhealed, right? They are always, carrying trauma and carrying a lot of things. But the white people have no trauma to heal from. They don't have any past to heal from. So they try as much as possible not to pass down those things that happened in the past, or tell them this is exactly what happened. Okay, and that's why in schools you don't see people really talk deeper, in depth of what happened. I don't know if you guys remember during this, was it during the Black History Month? So a particular teacher was teaching her students the deep part of history, okay, that really happened to black people and why they are celebrating Black History Month. So I think children, actually, kids, they went back home to tell their parents what they have learned and all that. And this teacher, I think she was arrested or something, okay, like she was going against the school curriculum, teaching what was it. And she was like, I was just trying as much as possible to tell. She was, I don't know if she was arrested or she was laid off, something like that, because parents came, complaining that they were teaching their children out of the curriculum, that this was not what they asked their kids, to come learn in school. And this teacher was, I think, laid off or something. So, it is so hard for you to find, the in depth of what really happened to this people. And that's why when black people come out to really complain, you see a lot of people come out and say, oh, are you guys the only one who went through stuff? I've seen a video where somebody say, I think it was a woman, he said white women has nothing to do with slavery and all that, so stop, you know, including us in. But they forget that actually their grandmothers, their great grandmothers were part of it. You were supporting your husband, you know. Your husband says this. I saw a video where they were discussing a particular video, and these women were actually having a conversation in that video. It's actually an old video, and these white women were saying, oh, there's these black people that just moved into the street. What are they doing in this place? Okay, those are the street that we call the cities that we call current sundown towns. And so what are they doing right here? Okay, this is not their place and all that. And you could literally see all of them talk about these people, and when they are passing, everyone is coming out to look at them like, what are you guys doing in this place? They couldn't believe that somebody that looks like me can live in their city and also have money to have their own house and all of that, because they believe that these people are meant for a particular level, right? So that's how it has been, and they keep teaching them superiority. We're there when we're superior than these people. Okay, we're supposed to enforce things, we're supposed to enforce laws. They don't tell them that these people are still people, they're still human beings like us and all of that. So when you see these people make these videos, you will know that these guys have really taken time to really study, okay, exactly what happened to, you know, people of color in the past, okay, how everything happened, how it started and all of that. But I just look forward to the day that the real history will be taught in classrooms, so our children can actually know exactly what happened and not hearing it from their parents alone. Okay, I wish all that can happen. Like, when exactly is that going to ever happen? Okay, maybe till Christ tarries, if Jesus Christ doesn't come anytime soon. But I'm just saying that at some point, okay, as parents, it's always very important to pass down history to your kids, okay, for them to understand what they're going through and how the world is. I think a woman was doing a video and said she has always told her kids that these other people, you know, you have to, whenever you're doing friendship with them, you just need to, you know, be very smart about it, right? And I, for one, as I was growing up, I and my siblings were taught by our parents, okay, history. They keep telling us this was what happened in this community and this community. They're not so close, okay. These are the kind of people you cannot marry, okay, because our community forbids it. This was what happened in the past. This was a fight that my grandfathers and my great-grandfathers fought. You know, they were actually telling us all of this so that we can understand the in-depth part of history. Even though in classroom right now, you cannot get exactly what they taught us, but we know, okay, we actually understand that there was a time this thing happened. There was a time these people were against us. When we see them, we have the understanding that there was a time these guys did this to us, okay, even though we're not present, but we have an idea, so that history does not repeat itself. Okay, we have an idea, we are actually being told the story. And that's why when you see some black folks, okay, go through some abusive marriages with the other party, you'll be like, didn't your mama tell you? Okay, anyway guys, but let me know what your thoughts are in the comment. Let's have that conversation in the comment section. What do you think about today's video? All the guys have said, like everything that have been shared in this video, share your thoughts with me, and please do what, subscribe to my channel if you have not already. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up so that more people can see it, and credit to all creators on this video. So let's go. Okay, subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and do give this video a thumbs up so that more people can see it. I look forward to seeing you all on my next video. Bye guys.